this song always awakens me. Good morning, folks. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. I think we will have a lively discussion today. I'm going to be discussing California, some of the changes that are needed, and I think a lot of those is we're in a supermajority. Well, I'm joined by somebody that wants to make a difference from Assembly District 27, Joanna Garcia Rose. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So first, just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, right now I'm working really hard on the campaign trail and also trying to figure out how to keep the big bosses happy at headquarters. I work for California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, and we were moved to basically Folsom, Rancho Cordova office a couple weeks ago, and it's making life a little challenging, but I can pivot. We'll make it work. We can still win the race, see my child, and pay the mortgage.
Well, all of those are necessary things. So why would you choose to do this?
I feel like the choice was made for me. I think that God gives us the ability to do things, and we can't waste those opportunities and not stand up and do what I think we're guided to do. I have a lot of experience in my background, and I feel like a lot of things in my life have kind of led me to this place where I could be that person that creates and effectuates the change that I want to see in our state.
Have you ever been elected to anything before?
No, I've been appointed to, well, I guess technically, yes. I was elected as a board member for the Madera Association of Realtors back in like 2012. And then I was appointed to the Chowchilla Airport Advisory Board.
Okay. Your background, you said you work for the prison system. What do you do there?
I'm the business manager for high security institutions. So there's 9 high security prisons currently in the state of California, and their business managers kind of work through me as a liaison to the director's office, dealing with their budgets and pretty much all things. If there's emergencies or things that happen, they all kind of go through my office to high level. Does
that then give you some insight into how the state works?
Oh, yes. I've got a lot of insight into how the state works. I've worked, besides working at CDCR, I worked at EDD as a tax auditor for almost 5 years before this. And I worked for Department of Toxic Substance Control at EPA headquarters before that. And then I took a break from state service. But before that, I was actually working at the prison in Chowchilla, Valley State Prison, the men's prison, as a use of force coordinator, and spent some time up at headquarters before that as the analyst for the Sex Offender Management Board in Department of Paroles. And then before that, it was at the women's prison that is now the men's prison. So still Valley State Prison, but it was filled with women, and I was working on the intake yard there. So I've had a ton of experience within the state and different agencies. Even before that, I worked briefly at DMV. So I think they taught me the most how to deal with challenging people.
You would have to learn that. It not just the customers, but also just the workers at DMV. I just shake my head every time I go in there at both the people waiting in line for service and usually I get somebody that's pretty good, but I also have, because you stand there for an hour or two, because I'm usually not smart enough to make the appointment. And I watch some of the employees and I think, oh my.
Yeah, I didn't have the opportunity to work in an actual office. Fortunately, I worked at the call center. So you're in your little cubicle and you just have to take back-to-back calls. You have to raise your hand if you want to take a break to go to the bathroom. And you get scheduled, lunches, because they have constant calls coming in. And usually everyone you talk to is pissed off at you by the time you talk to them, because they've been on hold for over an hour and, something's wrong or they wouldn't be calling.
Well, so that really led you to have some skills in conflict resolution.
Yes. I worked really hard to try to make, there was these little things you could get when you worked there where someone could fill out a card that says, how great you were. So I'd always ask. I was trying to get like the most of those cards. I don't know why. I just made it a game to make the day go by faster. How many people you could de-escalate and then get to fill out a card if you mailed it to them with positive things.
Well, but a whole lot of life is how you perceive it. Do you focus on the negative? Is the glass half full? Is the glass half empty? Look, the reality is it's both, depending on what you're looking at. But what you focus on changes your mindset.
Absolutely. Today's Bible verse was actually really insightful for me because it was talking about how God has created you to be an overcomer, to overcome things. And as I read it, I thought, man, God really did make me be an overcomer because I have overcame a lot of things in my life.
Well, you mentioned a car accident.
Yes, I was in a pretty bad wreck when I was a freshman in high school. Car rolled over. I was unconscious. My brother got me out of the car. They life flighted me to Oakland Children's Hospital. I was in a coma, medically induced coma for a couple days to confirm my neck wasn't broken. And then I woke up wired shut. So we had to have a little whiteboard so I could communicate. And then you had to, drink a hamburger through a straw for 6 or 8 weeks and then do tons of surgeries after that, restorative surgeries. So yeah, I had a lot early to overcome, but I just never let it kind of hold me back. It's just one extra thing, but you make the most of it. You manipulate things to be in your advantage. I had to eat special things or certain things, but the positive was I got one of the only accesses to leave campus to get lunch so I could go get smoothies or do other things. And my friends greatly enjoyed me coming back with extra stuff when that happened. So, you can make things to be okay, to be better, to be advantageous, even when they're terrible things.
Well, yeah, depending on your attitude.
Yeah.
You shift your perspective and all of a sudden you either notice all the blessings that are around you. Even when things are tough, there are still blessings.
I mean, I could have been disabled permanently, physically, mentally. I tell my brother he made me a little bit mentally disabled, all the things I could have accomplished if he hadn't, cracked my face open in a car accident. But
well, that's typical of a sibling to say, well, it's your fault.
But, I feel really blessed. I don't think that I was really impacted. I think that, God protects us. And I think I was absolutely protected because when I look at that car, I don't even think I should have been alive.
Well, then clearly your job wasn't done and God hadn't decided that you were done, that there was something else you needed to take care of.
Yep. We don't know what that is yet. I hope it's something that helps more people come to have a better life. I think that we're going through some really tough times in California, as much as the news or the leadership tells us we're not. I've never before seen things like this. I went grocery shopping with my dad, like every time he went grocery shopping as a kid, because I always wanted to get a candy bar or something. So I always went with dad.
So you knew dad was the soft touch, huh?
Yes, I was a daddy's girl for sure. I was the youngest, but I know what groceries cost. I remember going to the store with him and paying attention to those things. So you notice when you'd buy a week's worth of groceries and it was $50 and then $100. So I've never seen it in my life where I went to Walmart and could get stuff 5 years ago for $100 and now it's $300 to get almost the same items. That is crazy to me because I know my income didn't go from $80,000 to $160,000. So I don't know, how we can pay double for some things.
Well, I think a lot of people, debt is up.
Oh, yeah.
People are having to put things on credit cards just so that they can survive.
At some point, that credit is going to run out and you're going to have, you can't borrow from Peter to pay Paul. At some point, you're going to have to pay the piper. And we're going to have some serious problems if our leadership doesn't get in line with what's going on in America and in California.
I totally agree with that. That's part of what's motivated me. I mean, I started my journey in politics. I paid attention literally as a little kid, but I didn't understand the power of local. And the power of local, because the local people, they're the future leaders that typically move up. That's important. So picking good people at the ground level is incredibly important. But also, the assembly or the state senate has more effect on my life than Congress does the vast majority of the time. And we focus on the top of the ticket. I think where you're running, you have the chance to do more good or stop harm because it's super majority than most people. So I see it as, wow, you have this great opportunity. I don't want to run for office, so I have this opportunity to talk on the radio and use my First Amendment rights to motivate people to look at the Constitution, to understand their rights, to demand those rights, and to make government accountable.
Absolutely.
So you have some skills that might help you make government accountable. One of those things you mentioned through your job that you did would help you do that. Talk about that a little bit.
So as a tax auditor, I've audited over 100 employers in the last 5 years. And they were anywhere from mom and pop, no employees, one employee, all the way up to billion-dollar payrolls, publicly traded entities. And the one thing I noticed is they don't operate in a deficit; they operate in a positive. And being able to look for key things, key flags, just as an auditor, you review all the financials, bank statements, you're looking for things. And so it's clear when I look at the state of California, we have serious problems. I was frustrated as a state worker during the surplus that we didn't get our money back because we were told going into COVID that this was like the worst thing we've ever faced. And we're going to preemptively give everyone a 10% pay cut and furlough you because this is going to be catastrophic. And we have to, get a grip and hang on to our hats. And the, worst thing is happening. And then right after that, we had a huge surplus. Well, you cut every state worker. There's a lot of state workers, 10% during COVID. And then on top of that, you stimulated things. You handed out all this free money that was necessary in some regards, but the way it got done was just too chaotic. There should have been some more organization because we lost a lot of money to, incarcerated people getting unemployment. I remember a coworker talking about a claim and it was a little off. The guy was a landscaper, had a business, couldn't do it during COVID, was trying to get unemployment. And then he finally was like, this sounds a little young. He didn't even lie about it. He looked at the birthday and it was like not 18. Okay. It was like a 15-year-old kid who probably did have a landscaping business doing all the neighbors' yards and stuff. But, you have to be 18 and pay into to get out of. So it was just, there was so many things, that 15-year-old probably didn't come up with filing for unemployment on their own. There was parents taking advantage of a situation that were probably looking for a handout, more likely than not.
And to this day, we still do not have a credible audit to investigate what happened. And my understanding, we haven't really fixed the problem either.
Yeah, they're just going to continue to not take accountability. Our leadership, to me, I really think it's not about having good workers or bad workers. It's leadership. Any worker could be a good or bad worker depending on if they have a good leader or a bad leader. I myself could probably be a bad worker, maybe not as bad as some, but if I had a bad leader who's giving me bad instructions, I might not be that effective of a worker because I don't have the skills that are necessary. I don't have the tools that are necessary from my management. So, all of our leaders in the state of California are all appointed by someone. The legislature and the governor and the people that are in charge, the people that lack balance, the people that have had complete control over the state of California for almost 20 years. And if I looked around me and thought we have no homeless or very limited, we have no crime or very limited, our kids are graduating with all these opportunities and every skill they could ever want to become a functioning, productive adult with a great future ahead of them, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I look around me and I see the highest tax rates in the nation in our state of California. I see the worst roads around me. I see children graduating who don't know how to read, who can't fill out a simple one-page employment application. And I see homeless everywhere.
Including tiny towns.
Oh, yes, tiny towns.
I've
everywhere.
been in towns that less than 1,000 population. And I'm only driving through. I'm not even really looking around, and I see homeless.
They're everywhere, and it really does break my heart because I can't even imagine being homeless. And we've spent billions of dollars to quote solve this problem, and yet we have more homeless than we've ever had. So, do we need to be empathetic and compassionate? Do we need to give grace? 1,000% of the time we do, but we don't need to turn into a socialist society that collapses. And that's what I see. I see collapse on the brink, and I don't want that for my child. My son is 3 years old, and I want him to live in the prospering America and California that I remember growing up.
So you're in the assuming you're elected, and let's hope that happens.
Yes.
Folks, you need to help this lady get
Thank
her
you.
elected. Who would be your allies? Are there Democrats that can be convinced that maybe they should be more reasonable?
I certainly hope so. I pray that there are. I mean, I work in the state with people that are not of the same mindset of me on a lot of things, and we're able to collaborate and get things done. So I don't see any reason why going to the legislature is going to be any different. And I understand it might take some of those people to have courage to fight for what's right for their district, to go against what their leadership is telling them. The Democrat Party does a great job of falling on their sword. That's what I call it. They will not usually step up and fight for what is right. But I think the worse we see things, the more likely we are to have people willing to stand up and say, enough is enough. A good idea is a good idea. We need to be reasonable for us to prosper and survive.
I see it as they've set up a situation where they're trying to make people dependent on the government. They've destroyed accountability, and they've destroyed, in a lot of ways, the ability of local governments or school boards to make their own choices. Like, it's a top-down system where
Yes.
they know better. I could see that as incredibly arrogant.
That is a terrible idea, because if you look at all the innovation of America and California, all the great things that we've accomplished, they weren't accomplished because our president thought of it or someone higher up. They were accomplished because someone working their butt off, wanting to get to a better place, was able to be inventive and have the ingenuity to work up to that. I mean, if you look at the computers, that wasn't created in some secret factory, owned by the government. That was created in a garage. Mm-hmm. Everything that I think we're famous for as a nation is because the little guy has an opportunity. And when you start shifting us towards these socialist ideas, you're taking away the little guy's opportunity because you're making everyone equal. Mm-hmm. And that's not going to work, because at some point you run out of money. At some point, the people with all the money don't want to give it to the people who don't do anything. And I mean, I can't even imagine. Can you imagine going to work and making the same for no matter what you do as anyone else? Where would you be?
What would be your motivation?
Yeah, you would not have any motivation to excel or exceed expectations. You'd just be a drone.
Sadly, yes. And it also ignores the fact that, let's face it, this isn't a thing about skin color at all, because I think some of the most brilliant people I've ever met are not of my skin color.
Okay.
Not that I haven't met brilliant white people too, but I don't think that skin color has anything to do with it. I think that it's about a place where there's opportunity. And if we get rid of that opportunity, if we don't allow people to have and express their God-given gifts, anybody that's got a brother or sister, has got more than one kid, knows those kids, they're not the same at all. They're not the same even a little bit. There might be similarities. They might be more similar than different. But one kid's going to be really great at something, and the other one's not. They're going to be great at something else.
We are all very unique. And I mean, I don't even think you have to have kids to see that. You can have interactions with other people, and you can easily see when people are good at some things and not others. And that's why I don't like the education system that we have going on. I don't like a top-down. Our Constitution focuses on a bottom-up, local control. And part of that is because in your communities, you can see what things or what skills will be beneficial and what people can naturally do. I went to college for a long time, and I advocate for anyone who wants to continue to learn to always have the opportunity to work hard and go to college. That's what that's there for. But not everyone needs to do that. Not everyone needs to be at that top level. We need people at all levels. And some of these, quote, lower level jobs, welding, plumber, they can actually pay really well. They might make more money than I do as a tax auditor for the state. And
they're essential. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. I am talking about with an Assembly District 27, California Assembly District 27 candidate Joanna Garcia Rose. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So for those that are just joining us, this is the first campaign where it looks like you're going to win. That's exciting. You have a real shot. You have a chance to actually flip a seat.
We have a great opportunity here. Actually, Politico just wrote an article that talked about how the incumbent is one of the most vulnerable seats in the entire state of California. So I hope that more people will get involved, volunteering, donating, doing all the things that lead us to victory. But we really do have an opportunity. We won the primary. We were outmanned and outgunned.
And outspent
by a lot. And we were able to win the primary. And that's because of a core thing. I don't think it matters what party you are. I think people are ready for a change. And people are tired of career politicians dictating things to us and trying to snatch up rights from our children. I mean, the incumbent voted in support of 1955. And
so that's AB 1955.
Yes.
That's a California bill. Tell them what it is, because not everybody will know.
Assembly Bill 1955 basically makes it so schools are not legally allowed to tell parents about their children's choices at school. So if your child wants to transition and change their name and change their outfit at school, it is actually against the law for a teacher to inform a parent of this. And
so that's keeping secrets.
I just, I can't, as a mother, I can't even imagine. I would hope that I would notice something like that, honestly. But, we get all busy lives trying to, survive the inflation and everything else that's going on, try to make that extra dollar. Sometimes things slip through the cracks, and I cannot even understand why anyone would be in support of schools hiding information from parents. If there's an unsafe circumstance, if that parent is going to be violent and hurt their child, there's child protective services
and laws in place
that
already
can step in and protect children from that. So there's no valid reason in my mind why we need to keep secrets from parents. And I just think, what are they going to do next? What are they going to keep from us next about our children? It's not necessarily whether you agree or disagree with transitioning or not. It's about whether you agree or disagree if we as a parent have a fundamental right to know about what's happening with our children.
It's as if they believe that they're their children and you just have the responsibility of raising them, but they're actually the government's children. That is a communist perspective.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is very scary. I remember they had us read Brave New World, and everyone was like grown in a petri dish, and everyone got alpha, beta, epsilon, assignments based on your stature of where you were born into. So to me, that's like slavery, because you don't get to have any independence or any freedom or any opportunity to overcome.
It's basically a caste system.
It's horrible. I don't want that at all. And I don't know of any true American, no matter what party affiliation they are, that wants to live in a society where they lack opportunity and where the government is in complete control.
Well, I think one of the most unique things that our founding fathers did was they said our liberty is based, God, our rights were granted from God, but our liberty was based upon the individual. That we view the freedom and liberty through the lens of it starts at the individual. And that individual's rights are protected by God. Well, when that's the case, even if you're an atheist, and there are atheists out there, and you have the right to be an atheist. I think they're nuts, but hey, they have the right to do that, and I have the right to think they're nuts. You should still be happy that it's not the government granting your rights. There's a huge amount of freedom with that whole idea of we start with the individual, because that means that the individual is now empowered to be unique and use their skills, and through meritocracy, go capture the American dream. It's not gone. But we've got some hard times potentially coming that I think will make us stronger. They're not going to be fun.
No, that's what do they say? Hard times make strong men. Easy times make weak ones. Mm-hmm. So I think,
but it's a cycle.
It is a cycle, and we have to be aware and recognize the cycle. But I am grateful that I think people are waking up and recognizing this cycle, and they're willing to look for change. We have to break the supermajority in the state of California. I can't even understand why it's been in play for so long. It actually hurts Democratic people having complete control by Democratic leaders in the state of California, because there is no balance, there is no outside opinion, and that is what makes our country great, and that's what makes our state great. And when we're losing that balance, we're losing a part of ourselves and our freedoms.
Well, every bad idea seems to be turned into law in California.
Yes, there are so many laws. It's insane to me why people, well, how many bills are you going to pass? And what are you going to do to change things? It's like, can we delete stuff? Can we delete stuff? Because I think there's too many. We've overregulated ourselves into a coma. I mean, our hands are tied. Look at our housing situation. We have the highest housing in the country practically.
Well, as a state, we're the highest. There are areas that are more reasonable, but overall as a state, we have the highest.
Yes, there are areas that are more reasonable, but I mean, as time happens, you're seeing those areas become less reasonable, because you're seeing people from areas where it's less reasonable coming to the areas where it's more reasonable and driving them up and
bringing their politics with them. They moved away from an area because they didn't like the fact that everything cost too much, and they were losing their opportunity, that their dollar didn't go as far. And now they're moving to other areas, and a lot of them are not voting differently.
And then they're wondering why it's changing around them, where they're losing, these opportunities, why things are worse. You want to solve affordable housing, take away some of the regulations. How much does it cost a home builder in the state of California versus any other state? How long is the process? It takes, I put in a shed, a prefabricated shed, and I want to say it was like 6 months of back and forth with the county to put in like one of those, they ship it on a trailer and drop it. One of those. And that's crazy to me. All we were trying to do is put our lawnmower away.
To put that in perspective, I have some friends in Tennessee and North Carolina, and they did things like put in a whole barn. Okay. Not a shed, an actual barn.
Yeah.
A bigger structure. And it took 2 weeks.
That's amazing.
It took 2 weeks.
How many barns are falling down on people, crushing them to death? That's probably what someone in California would say.
Well, yeah, you have to get, and you have to get an EPA report, and you have to get a report on how it would affect water. And there's all of this bureaucracy, but we've set up laws that make it so easy to sue in this state that people are looking to CYA.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That's
one of, so tort reform would be one of the places where you could make a difference.
That's a good one. That's a big one. Just to me, it's common sense. I don't understand how California got to the point where we have people going to rob you, falling through your roof and get a bunch of money. It doesn't make sense to me. They shouldn't have been there to begin with. And who's going to put a warning where a place that's
up
not
on the roof?
Yeah. It's, and it's the same looking at the prison systems. There are cases where people get severe injustices and they deserve to be compensated for that. That's the only way we can kind of punish people is to charge them. But at what point do we draw that line where we're just making people who are actually supposed to be serving a sentence for doing something wrong, we're actually rewarding them for terrible behavior? It doesn't make sense in my mind why we would want to reward people for terrible behavior. And it also doesn't make sense why people are worried about crime and safety and they want to be safer, but they don't put it together where they see you're rewarding people for being criminals. So why would you get less people being criminals?
I think of it as you're subsidizing bad behavior and you're having no consequences for bad behavior. For instance, we both know we can go out, and I'm suggesting that you don't do this, but I've been tempted at times where I'm thinking, I'm pretty motivated. I could probably 8 or 9 times today go in and steal $950 worth of stuff, and that'd only be 8 misdemeanors. They're not even cumulative.
Oh my gosh.
So a motivated criminal could really have a nice living, and there's times where I'd like an extra.
I do not make $900 a day. Oh my gosh.
But that's not even just once. You could do
it again and again.
However many times you were motivated and could pull it off in a day.
And it's not that hard to pull off because nobody can do anything. So you just literally
you go
walk
to the
in
big,
and leave.
Yeah, you go to the big stores, you take off the license plates on your car. And
you don't even have to do that. My husband's store was, I say robbed. The people came, didn't have their license plates are clearly visible, no ski masks, nothing. Just walked in, took $800 worth of amps, walked out. Not a thing you could do about it. Cops don't care. I mean, the cops care.
Well, you can, but you're risking so much by confronting them.
Yeah, no, you can't. You'd end up being the perpetrator in prison, which is, ridiculous. So for our family, we have a 3-year-old child that we have to think about. And
right.
There's not an option to stand in the way. And I think his employee has children as well. So there's not an option to do anything but call the police, who say, oh, sorry, not $950. Thanks. Try again.
We're fortunate you're currently sitting in Clovis, California. And while our police staffing levels are not where I want them to be, they will show up for something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have better staffing levels than most areas. And we're generally the safest city in
state,
California.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So it's better. So here's a case where local government, even with bad state laws, can make a difference.
That's very true.
Anyway, what would be your top 3 issues or top 5 issues? Because I don't want to limit you to a number, but where is the priority?
I mean, the top 3 is the priority is water. We have to have water. We have to stop fighting over water. We have to make it not be a scarcity. We have the technology, the tools, and even the funding from a long time ago. We've passed bills to help us create
so things like Sykes reservoirs already paid for
infrastructure and more storage. We have to have water. We have to stop fighting about how we accomplish it and just get it done.
So why do you think water should be that much of a priority?
Because I think our whole economy in my district stems on water. Our economy in my district is fundamentally agricultural. The state has a lot of agricultural aspects in its economy, but this district is, I would say, almost 100% tied to it, because even the manufacturing and the other things that go on in this district, majority of them are tied to agriculture. There's a few things, they're building a new plant for the brakes in Chowchilla. That's obviously, equipment and cars, but
right.
That's not directly really tied to agriculture. But many of the industries related to this are tied to agriculture. And if we lose those ag jobs, then that's going to be a whole ripple effect, because people are going to not have money to buy the other things. So like my husband's store, people don't have money to buy stereos for their boats or their cars. They're going to have an issue. So I think fundamentally for our district, the key is really water. And for the state, I was just at a city council meeting and they were talking about the quality of water in Livingston and how much arsenic they have, and how almost all of their wells, a lot of their wells, have an arsenic contamination. And that's not anything a farmer did. That's just naturally occurring in formations. But they were talking about trying to get surface water. So we really need to make sure we have water available to the Central Valley and stop that high risk that it creates for families and for jobs. And then my next category would really be focusing on crime, because when you don't have consequences and personal property protections, you can't have prosperity, because people can just take what they want and you're not motivated or incentivized to be productive, because you're more incentivized to just go steal. So if we want to stop people from stealing, and we want to create a reduction in costs, because if anyone's noticed, I've noticed costs of goods are going up. Mm-hmm. It's a lot tied to inflation, but it's also a lot tied to the cost of doing business. And the cost of doing business is X number of people walking into your store taking $900 worth of stuff or less on a daily basis.
And you got to make that up.
And you have to make that up. So we, the law-abiding citizens and the working class, are making that up. And that's unacceptable. So we have to have a safe environment. We have to focus on getting crime under control. We have to have reasonable laws that are in place to protect personal property and our rights. It's fundamental to our Constitution. It's fundamental to our survival.
So you're saying that low crime equals prosperity?
Yes. I think you could find that statistically anywhere. You would see communities look better, have a higher quality of life, more happiness, so to speak, if you aren't worried about people stealing your stuff or attacking you. I definitely would say that is true. And then my final one is education. I mentioned I have a 3-year-old son. He's going to be starting the public education system soon, and it's not a great system.
Well, California's if you look at colleges, we're somewhere in the 30s, meaning the 30th best state, or actually 30th worst because you're beyond half. But if you look at public education through elementary all the way through high school, we're usually 47th, 48th, 49th, or 50th. We spend more money, but we don't get any results because we do things like social promotion, because grades don't mean anything.
Yeah.
And in a whole lot of places in California.
It's very frustrating what they've done with the education system. And, unfortunately, I don't want to be that parent that says I'm going to have to send my kid to private school. For one, I can't afford it on my income. But two, I already pay for education. Mm-hmm. We already pay taxes. All of us, even people without kids, pay for education. So we should do a better job of making sure that we're providing a good education. We need to give kids tools to not be criminals. I really think that's part of our problem. It's kind of like a ripple effect. You have kids that are graduating who don't have skills to give them opportunity. And therefore, what happens? You're incentivizing being a criminal. And then we have policies in place that actually make it incentivized to be a criminal. So you wonder why crime is rising. And our government won't acknowledge crime is rising because statistically, crime
they're
is
redefining
lowering.
They're redefining the crime, even though there's more of it.
Yes. So
they're just calling it different things.
It's I look at it like school. When you have a grading matrix, if a teacher grades on a curve, it's really easy to get an A versus a C. If a teacher doesn't grade on a curve, it might be harder depending on the curriculum you're in. Well, when you're grading crime, if you were to use the same exact matrix that we used in 1970, 80, 90, 2000, 2010, 2020, I bet you crime would be up a lot. But they've skewed the matrix, and now crime is down because we're not using the same standard that we were using 20 years ago to measure crime.
That's a huge deal. And Steve Hilton says this, California is to this nation what the United States is to the world.
Yes. I agree with that.
And I totally agree with that. When I heard him say that a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, okay, so if we're failing, we're setting up the nation to fail because we're the 5th largest economy. Our economy in California is about as big. It's comparable to the rest of the United States. Now that's slowly shifting as we have bad policy and
people are leaving.
Yes, and Newsom's doing things like eagerly signing bad bills like AB 1955 that pissed off one of the richest billionaires, Elon Musk. And he said, okay, that's it. I'm pulling out SpaceX and I'm pulling out my Tesla plant and I'm moving them to Texas.
And what's crazy about that is, Elon doesn't even have to care about that because I guarantee you all his kids could go to private school where those teachers better tell him what's going on with his kids. Mm-hmm. And, socially, he doesn't seem like the guy who really cares that much about some of those issues. But like I said, it's a fundamental principle of them setting a precedence of eliminating our rights and indoctrinating our children with whatever they want. I'm not saying what they're indoctrinating with them, with right now is right or wrong. I'm saying they shouldn't be doing it at all. We need to be informed. I remember being a kid, my mom read everything I read. There was books and chapters I was not allowed to read because they did not coincide with our religious beliefs. And that was okay. And I still got a pretty good education.
On that note, we're going to take our final break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. I am joined by California Assembly District 27 candidate, Joanna Garcia Rose. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So you're running, so obviously you want to make a difference. Obviously, California has been significantly less than the Golden State. I'm not even sure we're still the Silver State. We're more like the Iron Pyrite, the Fool's Gold State at this point.
Oh, my goodness.
But we have this tremendous opportunity to change it. I think people are waking up. How do you harness that opportunity?
There is a huge opportunity. I see it on a daily basis, and there's a lot that we can do. We need to seize the moment and have those conversations. They're tough conversations, but if you have those conversations with grace and kindness, you can come to a really great place with people you never thought you'd come to that place with. And I think that at the end of the day, if we prioritize what our focuses are, I'm a mother first and foremost, and that's what I care about. And many other people have children or family members, nieces, nephews. You don't have to be a parent. You can be a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, or just have friends, be a godparent, whatever it is. We want to see our future thriving. So we have a great opportunity to seize those moments and find the 80% that we have in common, which is to have a better future. Nobody wants to be, attacked or criminalized. So we really do have a moment here where we can make a change. And California's problems, I think, are really based on the lack of balance. And so if we are able to bring balance back to California, we could do some amazing things with this state. And we have that chance this year in November. Do I think we'll flip enough seats to break the supermajority in its entirety? No. But I think we'll make a big enough chip at that next cycle we will break that supermajority. And I think that when we chip away at that, we're going to have an opportunity to have those who are left. The incumbent I'm running against will hopefully not be left, if anything, and if I have anything to say about it. But there'll be others that were close, that got to squeak by. And I am hopeful that those people that I'll be working with will be cognizant of that moment where they almost lost their power and their authority. And I have confidence in the Democrat Party being selfish and self-serving. So those people are going to want to keep their position, and they're going to want to keep their constituents happy.
So you're saying it'll push them to be more reasonable?
I think so. I think it'll push them to be more reasonable because I have a loud mouth and I'm going to call attention to everything that they do wrong. And I hope that their constituents will hold them accountable. And I think the fear that their constituents might do what these constituents in my district are doing and hold them accountable will push them to be more amenable to reasonable things. It's not unreasonable to ask to protect children.
Well, now that depends on who you ask. If you ask that legislature, I don't seem to believe that.
I bet if you
Do you realize we have laws that allow a 10-year difference? Somebody 24 can have sex with somebody who's 14 and they're not labeled as a pedophile?
I bet you if you take any Democrat leader in office today and their 14-year-old child and tag them up with a 24-year-old child, they'll have a heart attack. So just because they're stepping in line and doing what their party dictates them, never Republican, never compromise, they also want to hold their supermajority. And voters are holding people accountable when they're aware of what's going on. It's my job, it's our job to make people aware of what's going on so that we can have accountability back.
Go ahead and give some campaign information.
So definitely, if you want to learn more about me and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, you can go to the website. It's joannaforthevalley.com. It's all spelled out, no letters or no numbers. It's just joannaforthevalley.com. And you can volunteer there. You can donate there. You can read about some of my information and my story there. You can also find links to other things on social media, Facebook, Instagram, prior news articles. I've been interviewed quite a few times by even the Fresno Bee, having some pretty good things to say. So you can find the links to those articles and read up so you're educated about who you're voting for.
Everybody should be educated about who they're voting for.
Yes.
You should look, even when I'm 95% sure I'm going to vote for a particular candidate, I still research their opponents, whether it's primary and there's multiple opponents or we're down to the top two. I always research.
Yes, do your research. I definitely advocate for everyone to do their research. And I think when you do that, you'll find that the incumbent has been a career politician. And if you look at the direction of California and its leaders, majority of our leaders have been career politicians. And that's not what we need. We need working class people who are willing to make a sacrifice. And trust me, this is a sacrifice, to stand up and do what's right, to fight for our families, to fight for equity, to fight for fairness, to fight for quality of life in a safe environment where the government doesn't have complete control and overreach.
That's a huge deal. Actually, before I have that question, one of the keys to California is whether you can get the Hispanic vote to vote for somebody who's a Republican. How do you do that?
I think statistically we are doing it. I mean, I won the primary and I'm going to win again in November, God willing. And that's going to be because I'm tearing down those walls. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I want to talk to everyone. And my great-grandparents immigrated from Guadalajara. They did things the right way. It was hard. And my father is the first in his family who went to college. He got a full ride scholarship to do it. He then went on to get a master's. And, you know, it just shows me the American dream is alive. The California dream is alive. They came to California from Iowa in the late 70s because this was a state of prosperity and opportunity. And I look at my dad now in his 70s, and he's concerned. He's really sad about the future that is being left for his grandchildren. And I'm not going to let my dad die sad. I'm going to fight to make things better in our state.
So you just happen to be blonde-haired and blue-eyed.
I just have, well, Guadalajara is a little bit, lighter area. And then I'm half German, my family's half German. Both of my parents were very German. So that's part of those qualities probably.
¿Se habla español?
No habla español. Me llamo Joanna Garcia Rose. No entiendo. A little. I know a few words to get me out of trouble.
My advice, having been out at the remates for years, meaning the swap meet.
Yes.
I speak just a little Spanish, but if I make the effort, it opens doors.
It does. I'm working on getting cards in English and Spanish because when I door knock, I'm like playing Pictionary, trying to figure out how to communicate with people. But it's crazy how much people really want to communicate, and you find a way. You know, I tell them, go to my website and it's on Espanol. You can go to and they're excited to want to do that. I think they're excited someone's coming to their door wanting to know what's going on, what's concerning them.
Well, it's like going to places where they've largely been ignored.
Yeah, it's and I'm blessed to have the opportunity to meet so many good people.
We're down to about 1:45. Why are you hopeful?
I'm hopeful because we did something nobody thought we could do. We won a primary in a district that's been blue for 20 years. And statistically, we are tracking to win again in November. And I need everyone on board to help us do that. And when we do that, we can be the change in California that we want to see. You can come to my website, joannaforthevalley.com. You can go to the Facebook and find out about events and things that are coming up. We're having a lot of stuff coming up, volunteer opportunities, along with fundraising opportunities. And you can reach out. I've had people message me all the time. I will respond back. That's, my job doing what I'm doing. So I just thank everyone for this great opportunity. And I'm really excited for what we can do in California.
Well, and it doesn't have to be a big donation.
No.
Even $5 makes a difference because that's several flyers.
Yes, it's the materials that we need to get the word out. That's what has to happen. We've got to have the materials to knock on those doors, and we've got to have the signs to build that name ID. So that's what we're, raising money to do is build our opportunity to have victory.
Well, I sure thank you for this time. We are wrapping up. This was a good conversation. I appreciate it, and I certainly hope you are elected. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town.